All right, cool. Looks like we're good. Welcome to day 6, part 6. Just to review day 5 briefly. We created that submission model and the accompanying routes so that a user can send a request to create a new submission with a title, the HTML code, and the CSS code. And just to refresh our memories, we can pull that up. I didn't pull up MongoDB yet. Let me do that real quick. Hopefully it won't be slow today like it was last time. We'll go ahead and log in. I'm sure it'll be fine. And then while that's working, let me show you basically the point of day 5. So just review. We could send, well, here we set up a get request to get all the submissions. And if we send that request, we can see it right here, an array of all the different submissions we created. And then to see the creation of a submission, if we went to post to the same route, submissions, and in the body, we already have it nicely there. This has to be unique, this field. So if we change this to just anything, doesn't matter, and send a request, this nicely gets created, a new submission. And then if MongoDB is up, we can see our collection of submissions live. So we have users, which was our whole user authentication, and then a collection of submissions. And I'm not sure if the most recent is on the top or not. No, the most recent is this one that we just submitted. So it appeared. So basically our backend is roughly done. I'm sure we're going to go back and forth a lot between our front end and our back end as we dive in. But today we're starting brand new on the front end, the React front end. All I did was bootstrap. At the end of day 5, I bootstrapped using npx create React app, and it took weirdly kind of a lot of time, so I just cut the video there. And this is the folder after running that command. So our objectives are, we actually get a check. We bootstrapped our React project. So we want to install React Router. So we can go ahead and do that right now. But just to show you the files that were created, this is just all the files we got for free when we ran npx create React app. And right now this is being live served. We didn't have to use live serve, but their version of live serve. So we'll clear out the junk that they gave us because we really don't need it. And we'll just say hello for right now. Just to see that this is running. Yeah, okay. And I'm going to take out their CSS. So we start brand new. And I'm sure this will give me some errors. No, that's fine. But I'm going to delete, I'm going to delete app.css. I think if I delete index.css, it'll give me errors. So instead, I'm just going to, actually, I'm going to keep margin 0 because the browser has some built-in margins that they put when you don't even put anything in your CSS code. And we just want to be in control of everything. So we'll keep body margin 0, but we'll delete absolutely everything else. So now that's nicely just no styling at all. And to test that out, if we delete body margin 0, see, it does put this fake margin. I mean, not fake, but built-in margin, which I don't like at all. So let's put that. All right, we don't need setup tests. We don't need logo. I'm not going to touch service worker because I don't want to deal with the crash. I can't remember if that'll kill everything or cause us problems. And then we don't need app.test.js. All right, so now we have a really nice and clean, right now we're going to leave index.js alone. We have a really nice and clean bootstrapped React project. So in our objectives, we said that our first objective for the front end is to install React Router. And what's the point of that? Why do we want React Router? Basically, we want to be able to put a path in our front end, like we're not going to really say /home. Home will really be just this /, just this. So that'll be our home. Let me delete that. But then we want to have /login and another page, which will actually be a component, be rendered. So we'll see the word login at first. And then if we go to register, we want to just see the word register. So that's our immediate goal right now, just to get some basic routing. And this is totally separate from the back end, which is why I like to have them in completely different folders and running them on different servers, of course, just because it can get so confusing, right? Because the back end has its own domain and its own routes and own paths, and that's completely separate from these front end paths. So yeah, so let's shut down the shut down the project and run npm I react router DOM. And while that's installing, let's see if there's a nice React Router guide, quick start. So is this for native? I think this might be React. Not sure if this is React Native yet. No, it's not. Okay, we're good. So our first step right here, we installed React Router DOM. And what we want is some basic routing. So let's check out what they did. They have some code that they import. Browser router, switch, route, link from React Router DOM. And then here's how they made links. So this is like our A tags in HTML, except now it won't actually take you to a new URL or a new HTML page, because this is a single page application. So it's just going to kind of artificially render a new component. So we don't need links right now. What we need is this. So let's go ahead and try to get just the word home to appear on our screen when we have /. And I know right now that's actually working, but we want the three of them. We want /, we want /login, just the word login, and we want /register for the word register. All right, so let me do what they say in the guide. Import browser router as a router. And let me run this too so there's no errors. And here we can just run it with npm start. And because this was already bootstrapped by React in the package.json, they already have code for start. So it runs React script start. And it does all this magic behind the scenes for us. We'll close the old one out and we'll continue to work on app.js. So no errors, so we know we're good so far. All right, and we also want to import route right now, and we won't need switch or link immediately. And these components are both from React Router DOM. All right, great. So right now we have the word hello. That's fine. But we actually want to, so this first step, so basically at our highest level of our app, we want to place this top level component router. That enables every component that we write in this application, no matter how much of a grandchild it is, to have access to navigation features built in. So this is kind of just homework we have to do using this router top level, and then we never will have to use this router component again once it contains everything. So now within this router, my first route. Oh, that didn't work. I'm used to HTML where you can just type the tag and press tab. So this is actually a void element, so I don't need the end tag like that. Do I need it here? Okay. So the easiest way to think about route, it basically will say, it basically will show and hide a component based on what the particular path is. So like right now, this is equivalent to the path of slash. So the components we have to give it is the path. So when do you want this particular component to appear? And then what component do you want to appear? So with path slash, we actually want a home component to appear, but we haven't written that home component yet. So let's actually write that component. And this home component will just say the word home for now. So in our source folder, we can put a new folder components. And we can say new file home.js. And here we're going to import React because we're going to use JSX. And when you use JSX, you need React. And then here, I'm just going to make a really simple functional component that returns the JSX. For right now, we can just do a p tag, I guess, and say the word home. And here I want to export default home so that this component is available to everyone. And you know what? I'm going to rewrite this into ES6 just because I'm more used to it and to show you guys both ways. So in ES6, we can really shorten this up to const home. Yeah, and that'll be nice for right now, nice and short. And right now it doesn't need any props at all, so we'll keep it like that. So now in app.js to import this, I think I can automatically just put the word home, and yeah, we have the option to auto import. And then you'll notice it did it for me, this top line. And that's VS Code IntelliSense. Okay, so right now, again, this route is basically just show or hide a particular component. And right now, this component is being rendered because the path is actually slash. And you might think if we made the path now slash login, home is still showing, but it should hide, right? Well, this slash is still present. To fix that, we can put the attribute exact. And now when we have a different path, it'll hide it properly. And if we go back to just the slash, oops, just the slash, it will show it. And we can make this a little bigger. Okay. So again, our objectives are to do the home path, which we did, just the /. But now we want to type in /login and see the word login, and then /register and see the word register. So let's do that. To do that, we're just going to copy this line twice. And instead of home, we're going to want login and then register. But we have to create those components. So I'm going to copy this code because it's going to be almost exactly the same. And new file, we're going to create a register component. And we're going to create a login component. Then let's paste that code and just replace the word home with login. And replace the word home with the register. Now app.js, as we type them, since they're already built and exported, we should have the option to auto import them, which is really nice. I mean, I like a lot. So here we'll do a /login. And the component we want to render when that path is activated is login. And here, when the path is register, the component we want to show up is a register. And we might as well, it probably doesn't matter right now, but we might as well keep the exact property in there. I don't know, it makes me feel good. So register didn't automatically come over. I might have not pressed tab on it. I'm not sure. Let's try again. Okay, there we go. So let's test this out. What already doesn't look right. When we type /, we get home, that's fine. /login. Okay, login, cool. And /register, we get register. All right. So going back to the README, we actually did those pretty quickly, those objectives, installing React Router for front end and their routes. And what should we work on now? So I think maybe first we'll do the register route. So maybe register component with a form, super simple. So that we can just see if our front end, we can successfully hook it up to be able to register a new user. So let's start working on that. Yeah, let's start working on that objective. So we're in the /register path right now, and just to quickly address kind of my style, I'm not going to do any styling at this point, because I feel like if we get in the weeds with CSS and styling, like it takes away from the real bare bones concepts. So I'm going to save styling for the very end of all these videos. So it's going to look hideously ugly, and I hope you'll forgive me, but I really think it's easier to understand the concepts that are more important than the styling. So what do we want to do here? I'm going to take away this short and sexy ES6 that immediately returns and make this instead, we can just still return the word register, but I want room to be able to actually code. So the purpose here is to have a form that the user can input their email and their password. And at this stage, I'm actually not going to do any front-end validation. I might save that for a later time. I'd rather get the bare bones going first. So let's get a form, and we need an input. So we're going to need an input for the email and the password, right? So let's get that on the screen. And that looks fine. And just so we know which is which, I'm going to put the placeholder property as enter email. Okay, and here we'll do enter password. Okay, so as we type in here, this is being handled right now by, I don't know if it's technically the DOM like it would be in web, but it's basically not under our control. And when we're doing forms in React, the very best practice is to use controlled input fields. So we have to basically hold these values in our component as the user types. Every keystroke, we want to record what they're typing in. So to do that, we need to use state. That's kind of the way to do variables in React. You use state, and it's kind of this short-term local memory for this particular component. So that's what we're gonna do. And to do that, to use state, so we can store these fields, we have to import that from React. And since it's the first time we're touching a new concept, let's see if there's a good guide, use state React. And this is referred to as a hook. So here's an example of use state. They brought it in, they imported it, and then they're using this really new and fancy ES6 destructuring with the function they imported. So we'll do it the same way. So ours is going to be email. That's what we want to store. And then if we look here, it says they were doing count and set count. So ours will be set email. So one of them is the value, and one of them is the way to set the value. And initially, so in the parentheses is what you put initially you want this value to be. So initially, we just want it to be an empty string. And then we're going to actually do the same thing for the password. This will be a separate part of use state, a separate application of use state. And again, this will just be an empty string. And now, just to prove to you that this is actually doing something, I'm going to console.log email and password out. And we should just see an empty string, right? Let's try again. What's the password? I'm not sure why I can't see it, or if this 2 is the empty string. Let me try to put the word, just whatever, some characters in here so we can see. Okay, so yeah. So this actually rendered twice, we notice, which is fine. React is doing its thing. But yeah, so now these are variables that are local to this component that we can use. And I'm going to set these back to empty strings. So as we type an email, I want this value of email to be adjusted. So I can even console.log just email and show you. As I type here, I want this email to be adjusted. That's our objective. And how do we do that? Well, this input tag has a onChange property. And every time this input box is changed, like a character is entered, a function will fire. And just to show you, we can just console.log fired. So I can put any function I want right here. And as I type, we see the word fired appearing in the console. But now I actually want this input to be stored as email. So when we use a callback function here for free, we get something called, I believe, the event. And let's console log the event right now. This is just what we get for free. And we see there's a lot of information here, but one of them that we care about is actually the target. So if we type event or e.target, and then we type here, we can see we get this actual JSX element. And then a property of this JSX element that we can't see here, but that I just know, is .value. And this will give us the current value that's stored in the element itself. So if we type, we can see now that we're getting the value that's typed in. So that's great, right? Now we want to store that value as email. So we can just simply say set email and then put in event.target.value. I have an extra parens. So I save this, and now we're console.logging email, and as I type, I get the email stored correctly. So we're going to do the same exact code, or mostly the same, in our password placeholder. But instead of set email, we now want set password. And now if we console.log the email and the password, max at gmail.com, password 123, and we see it right here in the console. Let me blow that up a little bit. Yep. So now we're successfully controlling this input component and these input fields. All right, so when the user is done entering their email and the password, they can either press enter, which right now if they press enter, nothing happens, or they should be able to have a button here that says register. So let's create them a button. and we'll put the word register. And we want the type, I believe, to be submit. Therefore, it'll know it's part of this form and function correctly. Yeah. And then also when we click submit, so we see there's already functionality that's now occurring when we click this button. It's actually re-rendering or refreshing our page, which we don't want. And that's some built-in functionality with HTML form elements. So this form element has a property called onSubmit, which will fire when the user either clicks a button of type submit or presses, I believe, presses enter. I'm going to try to press enter now. Oh, it actually didn't submit. Maybe I need to be in the form fields. Yeah. So I pressed enter when I was in the form fields and it tried to submit. So form on submit, this will fire any function we want, but I'm going to just say handle submit, a function we haven't created yet. And then I'm going to type handle, or actually const handle submit equals a function, which just console logs the word submitting. And now we can see when we type stuff in and we press enter, it says submitting and it refreshes actually, which we don't want. But also if we type the button, it'll say submitting and refresh. So let's stop that from refreshing. The trick to doing that is when we provide a callback function to this onSubmit property for free, we get this event object. And one of its properties is, I thought, event.prevent default, but I might have to look that up. Okay, so that works. You see that? So now there's no refresh of the page when we submit, which is awesome for our React application. And this is an issue you're going to have to do in every React project you work on. Okay, so what's our next step here? I think we actually want to actually send this to our backend. Yeah. So let's go ahead and work on that. First, the question becomes, well, where in our backend are we actually, like what URL are we actually sending this to? And if you remember, when we were doing requests in Postmon, we were sending requests to this domain, localhost 5000. And our backend is still up and running, so that's great. But so this will be the same domain that we want to hit from our front end. So I'm going to copy it actually. And since we're going to have to use this domain in many different places in our app, I'm going to do a kind of a trick and store this URL so we can access it from many different components. So in my source folder, I'm just going to say new file base url.js. And I'm going to say export const base URL and then set it equal to, well, the base URL. Because we're going to have to hit this in many different times in many different places. So it's easier just to not to have to retype it all the time and maybe prevent us from making some errors. Because no matter what we do, we want to hit that domain at least. Okay, so I saved that, I exported it, and now in my app.js, sorry, in my, where were we, register.js, let's attempt to actually use it just to play around with it. Let's actually try to hit this same route right here that we have up in Postman. So if I put fetch, actually, let's make it even simpler. What if we just send a GET request to slash? Do we have a welcome message? We do. So you see this /welcome? Let's do that here in our front end. Let's say fetch, and then we have to give it the URL, but we actually have base URL, which we can auto import. And this returns a promise, right? And the way to access the result of a promise with async await is the keyword await. And if we use await, we have to put async in front of our method list or argument call, argument list. And here, let's just console.log this response from the server. So now going back to our front end, when we click register, okay, so we see this access to fetch at localhost 5000 from origin has been blocked. So our front end is on this domain, localhost 3000, and our server, if I pull up our server, well, it doesn't say in the console, but we know that it's, where did we have it running? We gave it a port of 5000, so it's running on a different domain. It's running on this domain. So when we send a request from our front end, which is on 3000, it's basically being blocked by the browser for security concerns. But since we're building a React project, a MERN project, we're always going to have our backend decoupled from our front end. So the request is always going to be coming from a different domain. So we have to tell our backend to allow requests from any domain. And to do that, we use cores. So here in our backend, I'm going to Control-C this to shut this down. I'm going to install cores. And right after here would be a fine place. I'm just going to put in a middleware of, I think it's just cores, but it's not letting me auto import it. So that makes me doubt myself. I may have to tweak this, but let's just try this. No errors. Oh, there are errors. Okay. Cores is not defined. I didn't import it. So let's say const cores equals requires cores. Rerun this, and we didn't get an error. And now let's try to resend this fetch request to base URL. And I'll clear out this console. Oh, is there an error? No, no error. Okay. I'm clicking register, and it worked. It just didn't work pretty yet because this we have to decode with JSON. So let me say, let me just call this data, because this is definitely not the normal response that we're used to seeing, right? This is kind of some ugly stuff that we have to decode, but we can decode it and I don't know what to call this, but I'll just say response base data.json. So this will decode this ugly response for us into what we're expecting, like our normal Postman request when we just see the word welcome. That's what we want. And this also returns a promise. So to get at the meat of it, we have to use the keyword await, and then let's console.log response. Unexpected token W in JSON at position 0. Syntax error. I'm not sure about that one. Let me try again, refresh everything. And I'll refresh our backend. Fetch base URL. Let's check our base URL again. Oh, is it? Oh, okay. Yeah, because it's technically not JSON. How do I decode a... All right, let me go back to our register. Response equals wait touch. And try again, but we'll get the same error. Oh, I think because this line of code is producing an error. Let me actually Google this error and see if there's any good advice. I might try wrapping this in a try-catch response. Okay, so if we add these headers, it's saying it will tell the... We can try that. We can try using these headers in our fetch to try to avoid this error. So, yeah. Let me copy actually this piece of it. But I was hoping we could use fetch without... You know what? Maybe we should... First, let me put this all in a try-catch, because that's what you're supposed to do anytime you use async await anyway. So it's just good practice. So let's go ahead and do that first. And then let's console.log any error, which I think we'll actually see in this case. So we click register, and yeah, we got the error, but it didn't crash our whole application. So that's better. I think when I say data.json, it's expecting JSON. So in our backend, if we actually change this welcome to be response.json, and then just make this like message with welcome, I'm pretty sure that'll clear the error. But it also would be nice if we could just send normal strings without an error being produced in our front end. But let's see if that works first off. So yeah, now we get the response with no errors. But I also would just like, let's see if the Stack Overflow solution works as well. If we put in the headers, let's see what happens. So I'll rerun this code, see if it still works, and that's fine. But now I want to be able to accept, because there might be a situation where I just want to send a string. I mean, it's possible. So if I just say welcome again, will we get the error? Yeah, we do. So how do you just accept a string? returning JSON from, oh, okay, so this guy said he did the same thing. He just switched his API to return JSON. Simply don't do response.json. So is there a response dot? I've always used response.json for strings. Body.json. I'll look into this maybe, but I can just respond with JSON always. That should be fine. Oh, I wonder if I just change this to respond.json, if it'll work. I don't think so though. Oh, it did. Okay, so we're always going to use respond.json, which is standard anyway. We'll even change this send to respond.json. Okay. And that's what we're going to be doing. A lot of front end to back end tweaking just to get things working. And hopefully I can delete this headers because I'd rather just simplify my fetch requests as much as possible. Yay, awesome. Okay, so now it works. And now it works. It's not even JSON, but just with respond.json instead of respond.send, everything works. Okay, so now we're successfully communicating our front end to our back end, and we're just seeing that welcome message. But that's not our objective. Our objective is to actually post a new user. So instead of fetch base URL, we want to hit users/register. And just to refresh our memories, we supplied this route with an email, and a password, and I believe that's it. And we got a nice token back to us, and the user was inserted into MongoDB. Yep, so all the way at the bottom, Max at Yahoo. And the password was hashed all beautifully. So that's what we want to emulate here, pretty much. So the base URL is going to be the base URL plus users/register. And that's going to be equivalent to this path. And we can still use fetch, because fetch is for get, it's for post, it's for everything. But now things get a little more complicated when it's not a get request. By default, it assumes it's a get request. But if it's not a get request, it gets more complicated. So here we have to put in some options. And we'll go ahead and Google this, fetch post request example. And here we see that we need method body, but I also am pretty sure we need headers. So let me find an example with headers. Yeah, here's a better example. So we're going to have to put in all these options. So I'm actually just going to copy them. Yeah, and we insert the options as the second argument right here. And let's just take a look at these. So headers, this is giving a heads up to our server what we're sending it. And we're sending it JSON. And this is automatically done by Postman, I believe. Maybe not. There might be some headers that are hit. Oh, okay, they were hidden. So yeah, so Postman automatically is doing this for us. That's why we never had to do it. It's very nice. So content type header, and accept they have here, and they have something different for the accept. I think they have everything basically. But we'll use the example from Stack Overflow, and we'll try this. So the method, instead of get, we have post. And that's similar to here where we choose the method. And then body, this is equivalent to the body here that we were using. So what do you want your body to actually be when we send this? And we need it in JSON, so that's why we use json.stringify. And then we put in whatever we want our body to be. And in our case, we want an email that's equal to something and a password that's equal to something when we send it over. And what are these values? Well, these values are our state values. Their email and their password. And to be fancy in ES6, when the key is the same as the value, we can delete the value and just have the one word. So that's looking good. The response, we can do the same. Hopefully the server will insert this new user and then respond to us with the MongoDB document user. And then, yeah, let's take a look at that response. But in this case, I'm going to change this to be called user because that's more descriptive. And yeah, hopefully now our front end will be able to register a new user. It's kind of exciting if it works. If it doesn't work, we'll fix it. So here, let's do max at, I don't know, hotmail.com. It's crazy, like the monopoly Gmail has. Like I can't even think of someone else. Password 123. So now hopefully this fetch request sends and we get, oh, you know what? We're not going to get a user. We're going to get a token back. So let me save that. Let me re-enter this. Lycos.com. And I'm going to click register. And yeah, we got our beautiful token back. And this is now inserted into MongoDB Atlas. Let's check our README. I think we can probably get a check. So I'm going to break this down a little. Send a fetch post request with email and password and receive token. So we did, that's what we did. But our next sub objective for this register component is we now want to store the token that we received from the server. And we're going to do that in day 7. Yeah, and that'll complete the register component form, I'm pretty sure. All right, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.